Have you ever wondered what truly lay behind the aura of authority that made even the most legendary leading men stand in awe of Hollywood's goddesses? In the winter of 1986, America was stunned when the suave icon Paul Newman unexpectedly alluded to a buried truth. Several of the greatest stars of the Golden Age harbored gender secrets that stood in total contrast to their glamorous public personas. Tabloids of the era even went as far as to headline a 9-inch secret hidden beneath the silk gowns of one legendary screen siren. Were they powerful women ahead of their time, or were they gentlemen who executed the most spectacular identity swaps in cinematic history? Today, we will unseal the confidential files and altered birth certificates of 6 iconic figures. In reality, Hollywood did not just hide those born male. It sought to bury free spirits individuals who refused to live within the rigid confines of society's expectations. Before we dive deep into these thrilling mysteries, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss our exclusive documentaries on the legends of a bygone era. 1. Candy Darling, the transgender angel in an empire of shadows. Is there any pain more persistent and agonizing than waking up each morning to face a mirror that reflects a form your soul utterly rejects? When Paul Newman made his shocking 1986 revelation regarding Hollywood's gender secrets, the somber yet exquisite face of Candy Darling likely crossed his mind. In the eyes of Newman and his contemporaries, Candy was no far-fetched theory or baseless rumor. She was the most vivid, radiant, yet heartbreaking proof of one who was truly born male, but chose to live and die as a goddess to defy destiny. Traveling back in time to a harsh winter in 1944 on Long Island, a boy named James Lawrence Slattery was born into an ordinary middle-class family. However, even in his toddler years, James realized his body was a cramped prison. In a 1950s American society steeped in prejudice where masculinity was revered as a moral standard, the image of a boy secretly applying his mother's red lipstick or longing to step into slender high heels was more than just a quirky difference. It was a social death sentence. James grew up amidst silent stigma under the prying eyes of neighbors and the terrifying silence of his family. To save his fracturing soul, James performed the most profound execution of personal history. He completely discarded the name James and his painful past so that Candy Darling could be born. Paul Newman once mused that Candy's transformation was not a short-term stage role, but a desperate effort to correct a mistake of nature in the heart of a Hollywood that was notoriously ruthless toward anything deemed deviant. Because she possessed a beauty that fell outside all traditional molds, Candy never had the chance to walk through the gates of magnificent studios like MGM or Paramount, places where studio moguls only sought safe, easily controlled beauty. Paul Newman witnessed countless talents pushed to the fringes of society simply because they did not fit the traditional gender template. Candy was forced to find her heaven at the factory Andy Warhol's bizarre art studio. There, among rebellious and lost souls, Candy was worshipped as a true goddess. Warhol made her the soul of his classic underground films. Every time the camera lens turned toward Candy, one could see the haughty breath and flirtatious eyes of 1940s stars like Kim Novak or the legendary Marilyn Monroe. For Candy, acting was not merely a livelihood. It was the only moment in her life where she could truly breathe and be recognized by the world as a complete woman. She walked on silk with the confidence of a queen, even as she lived in the precariousness of the New York underground. Few of us, when hearing the free-spirited melodies of the song "Walk on the Wild Side," can imagine the scarred Candy behind that splendor. Paul Newman, with the sophistication of an experienced man, understood that people like Candy often paid a devastating price for their freedom. Though celebrated as a glamorous icon, Candy's diaries were drenched in words of longing to be loved as a normal woman, to be accepted by a man without pity or gender curiosity. To maintain that fragile, ethereal feminine appearance, Candy gambled her very life. In those years, transgender medicine was primitive and fraught with risk. Candy injected her body with hormones and chemicals sourced from the black market substances she believed were the elixir of beauty, but which were actually toxins ravaging her body day by day. In 1974, at the age of 29, when her beauty was at its most radiant and mature, Candy Darling passed away from lymphoma, a tragic consequence of years of body mistreatment in exchange for a female form. Her final photograph on her hospital bed, with her face still meticulously made up, her golden hair glowing, and a hauntingly sad smile, has become an immortal symbol. This is the somberest file that Paul Newman wanted the public to re-examine. Candy Darling did not just live for her own dreams. She used her entire life to prove a bitter truth. Hollywood and the world at large forever owes souls like hers a fair identity. She did not pass away as a man in disguise, but as a true starlet who burned brightly for the only essence she ever acknowledged. If Candy Darling's story is a somber ballad of self-sacrifice to reclaim one's soul, then the figure behind Hollywood's identity factories wore a much more enigmatic mask. A man who never exposed anyone's gender secrets, but made the entire world doubt everything, the tycoon of gender masks, Andy Warhol. 2. Andy Warhol, the wizard, brewing artificial goddesses.
Sort of major series of self-portraits for quite a long time.
Imagine a room covered from floor to ceiling in silver foil, where light reflects so shimmeringly it makes one lose their sense of reality. In that eerie space, a pale man with an erect silver wig and eyes hidden behind thick black glasses quietly operates a camera. This is Andy Warhol, the man Paul Newman believed turned all of Hollywood into a massive gender laboratory. Warhol didn't care if you were born male or female. He only cared about how under his lens you could be transformed into an artificial masterpiece. Warhol operated his studio no differently than an industrial factory, but the output was not household goods. It was new identities. Paul Newman was once stunned to see coarse, angular young men enter Warhol's doors and emerge just hours later with the aura of magnificent starlets, from smooth skin to feminine, coquettish gestures. Newman realized a ruthless truth: Warhol had detached gender from the biological body. For this tycoon, femininity was merely a formula consisting of 40% backlighting, 30% thick foundation, and 30% the desire to shed oneself. Warhol's existence was a direct challenge to the purity that Hollywood studios constantly preached. Warhol himself was an enigma that puzzled even the most profound observers like Paul Newman. He was not male, nor did he strive to be female. He existed as an asexual entity, a cold observing machine. Warhol was obsessed with erasing every trace of life from his own body. He meticulously altered every feature of his face with surgery and chemicals, not to be more beautiful, but to be more inhuman. This complete detachment from common sexual instincts made Warhol an outsider to the gender game, yet gave him the power to change it. Newman understood that Warhol's danger lay in the way he made the world suspect if a person's gender could be meticulously manufactured, like a silkscreen print. How many other icons of beauty out there were actually just counterfeit editions? After a near-fatal assassination attempt in 1968, Warhol began a strange habit: recording and photographing every conversation and shift within the artistic circles. Newman and insiders whispered about a secret archive. Warhol kept a repository of evidence regarding the most shocking identity swaps. Warhol knew exactly which actresses were using male hormones to achieve their signature raspy voices, and which ladies actually possessed the pelvic structure of a man. Newman hinted that Warhol kept these secrets like a collection of nature's defects that he had enchanted into high society treasures. Warhol didn't expose anyone through words. He exposed them through his presence. Through Warhol, Paul Newman wanted us to see a Hollywood that was not a place of innate talent, but a place of radical identity, reconstructive surgery. Andy Warhol taught us a bitter lesson. In the world of glamour, truth is the cheapest commodity, and gender is merely a meticulously staged play where Warhol was the supreme director, sitting in the shadows laughing at all our prejudices. Leaving behind Warhol's bizarre laboratories in New York, we return to the Hollywood Walk of Fame to face a Jimmy Hepburn, a person who needed no filtered light or wigs but used masculine trousers to slap the face of prejudices against the fairer sex, Katherine Hepburn. 3. Katherine Hepburn, the boy with a soul of power.
The Hepburn, but it's not as something.
On May 13, 1907, a child named James S. Hepburn was registered in the vital records of Hartford, Connecticut. But the peculiar detail that stunned Paul Newman and later historians was how the name James suddenly vanished from living documents, making way for a radiant Katherine, who nonetheless carried the full anthropometric characteristics of a man. Hollywood insiders had long whispered about a silent identity swap within the Hepburn family, where a daughter was created to inherit the strong bloodline of a deceased older brother. Throughout 6 decades of reigning over Hollywood, Katherine Hepburn never truly acted like a lady. Her closest assistants revealed that whenever she stepped away from the camera, she immediately demanded to be called Jimmy, a distinctly male name. Paul Newman once spoke of her early auditions at RKO Studios, where directors gasped in shock, unsure if they were facing an actress or a defiant teenage boy wearing an oversized man's suit. Hepburn didn't wear trousers to follow a trend. She wore them as a suit of armor to protect her true identity. At a time when women wearing pants could be arrested for violating public decency, Hepburn strode boldly across film sets in men's leather shoes and a powerful, long gait. She once made a statement that silenced even the most conservative men. "I wear pants because I can climb trees faster than any of you." This was not the coy remark of a starlet. It was a declaration of status from one who held masculine power. The way Katherine Hepburn loved also bore a different hue, completely devoid of typical dependence or fragility. Her 26-year romance with Spencer Tracy was a quintessential example of gender role reversal. Newman once observed that between them, it wasn't a conventional union of a man and a woman, but rather a symbiosis of 2 powerful masculine entities. They never married, never lived under one roof in an official capacity, and Hepburn cared for Tracy with iron discipline, calmness, and the authority of a seasoned comrade. She did not play the role of a submissive wife. She was the guide and the solid anchor for Tracy until his final moments. The masculinization in her way of loving led many to suspect that the glamorous image of Katherine Hepburn on screen was merely a sophisticated performance to mask the true Jimmy within. Paul Newman often spoke of Hepburn's physical structure with a mix of respect and suspicion. She possessed a sharp jawline, broad shoulders, and the flat chest of a male track athlete. Hepburn had a habit of taking ice baths every morning and excelled in combative sports activities considered too taxing for women of that era. Most notably, leaked medical records from Cedars of Lebanon Hospital in 1947, where she underwent surgery after a riding accident, contained cryptic notes regarding atypical reproductive anatomy for patient code KH4703. Could it be that the blood of James Hepburn always flowed through Katherine's veins, making her a man in the form of the most perfect woman cinema ever produced, completely different from the sorrow of Candy Darling or the manipulation of Andy Warhol? Katherine Hepburn chose to live directly facing the world. She needed no surgery, no pity. She used her talent and intellectual dominance to bring the world to its knees. Newman pointed out a ruthless truth: Hollywood had to grant her 4 Academy Awards, not just because she was a great actress, but because they feared the masculine power radiating from her. Katherine Hepburn never explained her gender because to her she was a new definition. She proved that if you are good enough and strong enough, the entire world will adjust its definitions of male and female to fit you. While Katherine Hepburn used masculinity to conquer audiences, another woman chose the opposite path, building an extremely feminine exterior, like a perfect silk armor, to hide a somber past linked to the male name Lawrence LeSueur, the Iron Woman Joan Crawford. 4. Joan Crawford, the architect of muscle and silk armor.
And
I've never denied you anything.
anything money could buy.
Every morning before the sun could peek over the Hollywood Hills, a woman would soak in a tub full of ice water, then use alcohol-soaked cucumber slices to violently rub her angular face. This was no ordinary beauty ritual. It was a rite of sharpening the appearance of Joan Crawford. Paul Newman once hinted that Joan's femininity was not a gift of nature, but a monumental construction carved from a raw masculine embryo named Lawrence LeSueur. In the archives of the Missouri State Police from 1931, a record was found regarding a brawl at a nightclub. The individual detained was registered as Lawrence R. LeSueur, a young man 1.78 meters tall with a narrow pelvis, broad shoulders, and the deep voice of a grown man, but wearing a lace dress and dark red lipstick. Strangely, immediately after that event, the name Lawrence completely evaporated from all legal papers. Just months later, a radiant woman named Lucille LeSueur appeared in the film capital, quickly signed a contract with MGM, and changed her stage name to Joan Crawford. Paul Newman, with his keen intuition, saw through this identity evacuation. He realized that Joan Crawford was not just a stage name, but a perfect mask erected to forever bury the identity of the young man Lawrence. Joan Crawford possessed a facial structure that photographers of the time called a sculptural structure. Her high cheekbones, square jaw, and sharp gaze carried an oppressive power. Paul Newman once shared that behind the scenes, Joan was known by the nickname, the man in a dress. She didn't play weak women in need of protection. She played predators, those ready to crush anyone in their way. A masculine alpha acting style that few starlets of her time possessed. The extreme theatricality in her wardrobe with massive shoulder pads and heavy makeup was actually an effort to hide coarse biological lines. She turned herself into an icon of camp style, the exaggeration of artificiality. Paul Newman believed that Joan Crawford never exposed a single centimeter of skin without the control of lighting or makeup, because she understood that one small mistake could reveal the 9-inch secret or the male skeleton she had spent her life hiding. The harsh relationship between Joan and her adopted children, especially what was revealed in the memoir Mommy Dearest, exposed a terrifying psychological corner. Joan ruled her family with iron discipline and the violence often seen in the autocratic men of that era. She was obsessed with cleanliness, perfection, and absolute submission. Newman once remarked that Joan Crawford lacked a mother's instinct. She had the instinct of a boss trying to protect his empire. Her cruelty and hunger for power were the release of long-repressed gender tensions. She could not live as a man, so she chose to dominate the world in the form of an Iron Woman. Unlike Candy Darling, who always craved understanding, Joan Crawford only craved submission. She is proof that Hollywood is a place where a person can brainwash their own past to become a completely new entity. Paul Newman concluded that Joan Crawford was not a victim of gender. She was the one who turned gender into a political tool. Whether born as Lawrence or Lucille, she taught us a bitter lesson. In the world of glamour, biological truth means nothing compared to a meticulously constructed image. Joan Crawford took the secret of Lawrence to her grave, but the aura of a queen remains as a challenge to all our prejudices about men and women. Amidst the Hollywood avenues preoccupied with rigid moral standards, a rose suddenly appeared with the demeanor of a monarch using men's suits to redefine the allure of women. She did not choose to hide or run in the shadows. She stepped straight into the light, looked the world in the eye, and proved that gender is sometimes just a haughty stroll for those who hold absolute power. That was Marlene Dietrich. 5. Marlene Dietrich, the most charming gentleman in a goddess's form. There is an unwritten rule in Hollywood: if you want to hide a secret, display it right in front of everyone as proudly as possible. While other stars used silk dresses for camouflage, Marlene Dietrich chose to step into the spotlight in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo white tie and top hat, then shared a passionate kiss with another woman to the astonishment of millions. This was not just a scene in the 1930 film Morocco. It was a haughty declaration of a soul that would never accept being imprisoned within the word woman. Paul Newman once alluded to a dusty archival file in Berlin, which recorded the strange disappearance of a male student named Rudolf Dietrich in the late 1910s. Rudolf possessed an incredibly delicate face and a somber, resonant singing voice. The shocking revelation was the simultaneous appearance of an actress named Marlene Dietrich, immediately after Rudolf vanished from official educational records. Newman and insiders whispered that Marlene was not just a stage name, but a spectacular gender migration, executed under the patronage of master directors, those who saw the potential of an androgynous beauty that could overwhelm the world. Marlene Dietrich did not wear men's clothes to imitate men. She wore them to prove she could be a more perfect gentleman than any other lad in the film capital. Paul Newman once remarked that Dietrich's allure did not lie in soft curves, but in the power of her duality. She possessed a broad shoulder frame, muscular legs, and a deep, gravelly voice, capable of piercing through any audience's emotional defenses. When she donned a military uniform during tours for the troops, General Patton exclaimed that she was the bravest soldier he had ever known. Newman understood that Dietrich had turned gender into a supreme performance language, where she roamed freely between the male and female poles without ever needing to apologize to anyone. The mysteries surrounding Dietrich's body were always the hottest topic at private Beverly Hills parties. Paul Newman once heard of a secret medical report by Dr. Jean Rochefort in France in 1963, after she fainted on stage. The report noted cryptically of long scars in the lower abdomen and a biological structure inconsistent with typical female gender. It is believed that to maintain her image as an ageless goddess, Dietrich underwent regular male hormone treatments even into her old age. Her daughter Maria Riva later confirmed in shock, "My mother often spoke in a man's voice when home alone, and she possessed a masculine energy that could stifle anyone around her." Unlike the sorrow of Candy Darling or the autocracy of Joan Crawford, Marlene Dietrich approached the world with the mindset of a victor. She did not view being born in a different form as a mistake, but as a precious material to build a legend. Newman was right when he said that Dietrich was the only one in Hollywood who could be a mother, a lover, and the most reliable man all at once. She took the secret of Rudolph to her grave, but she left humanity a priceless lesson. The truth of a human being does not lie in what medical records state, but in how they choose to present themselves to the world. As the colored lights of Berlin and Paris gradually faded, we return to the haunting silence of a Swedish ghost, one who spent half her life fleeing from every gaze, taking the secret of a body not of this world, to her grave that was Greta Garbo. 6. Greta Garbo, the Swedish Sphinx and the Body of Divine Secrets.
Sleep. That means you're either happy or...
At the peak of her career, while the world was kneeling at her feet to beg for a smile, this woman suddenly uttered a phrase that became the curse of her life. "I want to be alone."
Contract? I just want to be alone.
This was not the coy remark of a temperamental starlet, but a desperate cry for help from a soul harboring a biological secret that the Hollywood of that era was never ready to face. Greta Garbo, dubbed the Swedish Sphinx, chose to live the rest of her life as a phantom, fleeing from every camera lens just to protect a truth that Paul Newman had quietly confirmed in those 1986 secret files. The story of Garbo turned bizarre when Paul Newman alluded to a leaked MI5 file which contained a chilling note regarding subject code GG. Birth records and X-ray images inconsistent with female gender. From her earliest days in Hollywood, lighting technicians at MGM whispered that Garbo's body was difficult to light in typically feminine, sensitive areas. A veteran technician once secretly revealed that Garbo possessed shoulders as broad as a male swimmer, a firm back and large, powerful hands, traits that led her to always demand light be filtered through multiple layers of thin silk to soften her masculine frame. Garbo's mystery was not limited to her masculine attire or stoic personality. Newman once heard the confession of a Swedish nurse named Larsson. the only person allowed access to Garbo's body during her years of seclusion in New York. Larson was stunned to realize that the goddess of millions actually possessed a highly aberrant biological anatomy. No uterus, no signs of a female biological cycle, and most notably a long scar running from her hip to her lower abdomen, the mark of an early major reconstructive surgery aimed at feminizing a form that originally held a different gender identity. Because of this inhuman difference, Garbo rejected all physical intimacy, living an asexual life amidst a film capital teeming with desire. Why would an icon of beauty choose to live like a pariah, always wearing slouch hats, dark glasses, and walking hurriedly through the streets of New York for 50 years? Paul Newman understood that Garbo was not fleeing fame. She was fleeing exposure. She feared that if anyone looked too closely, they would realize that mesmerizing beauty was actually a perfect kneading of medicine and the art of makeup. Whenever someone tried to photograph her, Garbo would cover her face and cry out, "I am a man in a woman's body, please leave me alone." To her, silence was not golden, but the final mask to preserve some dignity for the secret she carried. Unlike the rebellion of Hepburn or the showmanship of Dietrich, Greta Garbo chose absolute silence. Newman once remarked that Garbo was the truest character on this list because she spent her whole life protecting that truth by turning it into an unsolved myth. She needed no explanation, no struggle. She only needed to disappear. Greta Garbo passed away in 1990, taking the secret of the Sphinx to an unmarked grave in Sweden. She taught us one final lesson about Hollywood: that beauty sometimes lies not in what is visible, but in what is hidden. Garbo was not born to be a woman. She was born to be an eternal androgynous icon, a testament that in this mortal world there are beauties that transcend all definitions of male and female, leaving us only with admiration and a sorrow titled The Forgotten Truth. 6 people. 6 lives with secrets that never found a complete answer. Paul Newman's 1986 revelation was not intended to deconstruct any monuments, but was a belated acknowledgement for colleagues who had to live a grueling, double life. In the Hollywood dream factory, gender is sometimes merely a costume to create perfection. Whether born male or female, their courage to live differently is the true eternal radiance. They were not just stars. They were those who conquered prejudice to be themselves in the most private and mysterious way. The journey to unseal the secret files of these legends concludes, for now. If you love these stories filled with nostalgia and drama, please support us by liking and subscribing to the channel to continue exploring the hidden corners of history. Leave a comment. Which character's theory do you believe in most from today's list? Your companionship is the motivation for us to seek out the next precious materials. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and see you again.